Welcome back, everybody. This is Moonstruck right here on Riot Radio. I'm your host, Ryan, and today we're going to be revisiting a topic that we've covered in the past, which are brainwaves. We're going to be talking about how to implement them to actually affect the subconscious mind and better our life overall. But let me first just start by saying that in the near future, you will be able to catch this segment on the local Rogers TV network. So stay tuned for more updates around that. Without further ado, though, let's get into brainwaves. So maybe we'll pull up the first image and we'll just kind of revisit some of what we talked about in the past. So, of course, we know there's 5 different brainwave states and they all perform various functions. The thing to note is that though they are separate layers or separate frequencies, they all are emitted from the same like system. They're all emitted from the same circuit, and like it's almost similar to the light spectrum, how all the colors, though they appear distinct from one another, they all are part of the same bandwidth. They all are part of the same spectrum. So same thing we got here for brainwaves. So of course, maybe we'll go in descending order here, or actually ascending order maybe today, just because I want to touch on gamma waves a bit specifically. So delta, we have deep sleep. So this is deep dreamless sleep, which we've talked about in previous episode. If you guys are not familiar with the episode I'm talking about, I will link it in the description below, so you can check that out as well. It will go more in depth than what we will talk about here today, but essentially delta is deep dreamless sleep where there is no REM activity. It's mainly focused on deep cellular regeneration, and this is why there is no real conscious activity going. And as we can see, it's about 0 to 4 hertz here on the frequency range. So the next up is theta, which is kind of associated with dreaming, REM sleep. Here it says meditation and creativity. So this is around 4 to 8 hertz, as you can see on the screen. This is really that state of imagination, and specifically how this is implemented, as talked about in a lot of scientific papers, especially surrounding psychology and concepts like hypnotherapy, or any concepts relating to psychology that deal with the implementation of change or new belief patterns being implemented into the subconscious mind. And the reason why understanding this is really important, actually, I'll touch on here, is that during those twilight hours of each day when we're waking up and when we're going to sleep, this is the doorway or window, rather, where the subconscious mind is open to receiving information. So it really means that the things that you are doing prior to going to sleep, whether that's watching TV, looking at something on YouTube, you really want to make sure that that content is actually feeding your overall personal development, because that traditionally will be placed right into the subconscious mind, essentially. And the reason why this is important is because the subconscious mind acts almost, subconsciously. It acts automatically. It's a instinct or a reflex based way of thinking, right? So in essence, that is the importance of that brainwave state. And, you can say that this state is maybe a bit more deeper than what you would be consciously watching with something like on YouTube or something else like that. It's a bit more of like when you are falling to sleep listening to something. So like if you're listening to ASMR or whatever, then you want to make sure that that is actually something productive in the realm of content that you are absorbing in that niche. So anyway, so with that being said, check out my channel on that. Moving on to alpha brainwave states. This is something that is more, I guess, associated with a relaxed state that you would see when somebody is like watching TV or doing some kind of activity where they are relaxed and not all tensed up and really able to subtly tap into the subconscious mind. So you can think of this state as almost like something you would attain when you're having a relaxed workout, where maybe you are pushing yourself, but you're not necessarily feeling anxiety. You're just feeling like almost at home, where you feel like, you're in the zone, right? Or you're actually, maybe I shouldn't use those words, but essentially you're in a state where you are relaxed enough to perform without anxiety, and also tap into like some subconscious things. So, like, for instance, maybe you're subtly like daydreaming a little bit as you're exercising or in the gym or whatever. You're thinking about some project you're working on or whatever. You're not all tensed up and just like kind of like anxious, I should say. This is really associated with states like that. Also, like I said, you can be in the state while you watch TV and you're just relaxing. You're not doing anything too strenuous. Reading, another state, or listening to an audiobook. Personally, I am an audiobook person myself. I just bought Biology of Belief, which is a book by Bruce Lipton, which we have actually mentioned on this channel before. Interesting book. I will update you guys when I have some more information on getting into it. So again, that is alpha. Really relates to those relaxed states of consciousness that deal with light trance states, and the ability to subtly imprint things upon the subconscious mind, because the individual is in a relaxed enough state to absorb information. So the thing about school, which is actually pretty interesting, is that you think that they'd want to facilitate these states more to progress learning, which is kind of underutilized thing, right? Because like I'm sure a lot of you have noticed from experience that you can only really do your best work or engage really truly with something that you are learning when you are genuinely enjoying it at some level. And then not only does it not feel like work, but it also feels like it's progressing you as a human being instead of just something that you have to do, right? So this is somewhat associated with the brainwave states and how they perceive the outside environment as well. So again, alpha is a pretty, I would say, optimal state to be in throughout the day in terms of using energy fairly efficiently. So beta is the next one. So this is about so it says like, okay, well, alpha, it says 8 to 13 hertz. I would say it's more 8 to 15 hertz, and then beta is probably around 15 to 30 hertz. And then it says gamma is like 35 and plus, like up to 100 or whatever. But I would say beta is around 15 to 30 actually. And it's just in this diagram specifically, it shows this. So it says problem solving. So this is kind of that anxious state where I was talking about, where you use a lot of energy. Beta is a real energy focused state, and I don't mean focused as in it's applying that efficiently. I mean focused as in it's using a lot of energy and it's focusing on using a lot of energy. So if you're somebody who's like working on like a project that you have for work, or a school paper, or something that you're like you're working on that maybe you don't necessarily want to work on, or it's like, giving you a challenging time or whatever, and maybe you're not working on it as efficiently or as smoothly as you could be, this is typically the state that you will be in, beta. And again, like where most people are like running around in their lives, and we've got a lot of thoughts going on throughout the day, and we're always like doing things, like always, I guess, moving at a fast pace in society nowadays. This is a state which is becoming a lot more prominent in society. And if we can learn to implement these brainwave states efficiently, we can kind of moderate our energy usage. So again, beta is not the most optimal state to function in most of the time, because not only does it use up a lot of energy, but it, again, doesn't use it very efficiently. So if we step it up a bit to the next highest brainwave state, we have gamma. here is actually a pretty profound state, which I would say even like it's kind of challenging to explain, but let me just tell you what the science says. Science says that basically people who eat certain like superfoods like pistachios, or do things like meditation, or have increased states of brain plasticity due to performing certain exercises, typically produce more gamma brainwaves. And gamma brainwaves are also synonymous with states of spiritual enlightenment, or big information being downloaded to the consciousness at one time. So basically, it's a data processing state, which your brain is attempting to process a lot of information. So this is why it says heightened awareness, and is also synonymous with states like flow. So again, I already have an episode talking about this, but if we look at like Goku's Ultra Instinct, bro is like taking gamma waves to like their peak efficiency right there. So that's the type of flow that really we're talking about when we talk about gamma waves. We're talking about not only energy being used efficiently and in a stable, balanced, unified way, but we're also talking about it being used at a very high energy level. But the thing is, because it's used efficiently, you're not just like wasting energy or throwing it away, right? So again, that's gamma, that's heightened awareness, and it's synonymous with things like flow states and conscious states that have the ability to maneuver through whatever you are doing. I wouldn't say easily, but unhindered. And what I mean by that is that the state or energy that you are in while in that state typically remains constant regardless of the activity that you're working on in that state. So this is why it's sometimes a challenging state to actually facilitate, because not only can you not just bring it out whenever you want, because it's something that is very rare for the most part, but also it is something that, how should I say it? It's almost like a rare moon, like a rare full moon or something like that. And it only comes out at certain times. But when it does appear, it takes an immense connection to the self to facilitate. And one of the main qualities that surround this state of consciousness is this concept of surrender or letting go. So everything that you're holding on to, your fears, your emotions, your desires, everything within you, you have to let that go. It's almost like they say in Dragon Ball Super, right? Like Goku is he's focused only on Jiren or on the fight itself. Concerns for his universe with the gap in their powers, fear, his anticipation, all of that, he's let it go, right, to the flame. So this is the concept that essentially when you're in this state, everything is like, just in fluid movement, almost like a candle flame dancing through the world, right? And if you think about, as we've talked about, like the energy of the soul, the energy that fuels the actual energy of the human being, this is really intensely connected to that state. And also I will mention that this state is also present with, like, it's not just about you are basically moving through the world with the most untouched agility, like agile instinct, but you are also facilitating certain states within your body that actually promote healing, right? We even see like Goku in Dragon Ball Super, that he is essentially, his power is raised to a new level that is only attainable, or typically only attainable to gods, but his power level is now off the chart, and that's because his energy not only climbed higher, but everything is being precisely utilized. And the thing is, you don't have to be a Super Saiyan to be able to achieve a state like this in your life. Sure, you won't be able to blast through rocks for the most part, but you will be able to achieve your desired result in an activity by essentially becoming one or fusing with that activity. But the catch is that you have to release that desire to succeed or to get a certain result in order to attain that state. So it's somewhat paradoxical, but again, like, you know, what they say about consciousness for the most part, that, you know, not everything has to be understood or have a meaning. Not everything has to. So I don't know if we could get actually a second image up, just on, we'll go to the next image and we'll cover more in depth here. So again, the reason why I put this one second is because it's not very representative of the level of brainwaves in sequence, because here, of course, we see gamma at the bottom, but as we know, it is the highest brainwave state. So again, you could read what's on the screen here in terms of what it says here, but to just break it down, it says beta away, or actually I'll read them in the order they're supposed to be in. So delta, deep sleep, loss of bodily awareness, that's delta. Theta, reduced consciousness, deep meditation, dreams, light sleep, REM sleep. So as we talked about, those qualities. Alpha, physically and mentally relaxed, awake but drowsy. So it's, again, in that state where you're like maybe watching TV or reading a book at the end of the day, and you're not so tired that you want to go to bed, but you're not so awake that you can, like, you know, expend energy very rapidly, right? Next is beta, awake. What does it say? Normal alert consciousness. So it says normal alert consciousness, but I wouldn't say this is normal alert consciousness. I would say for today's society, for the time we are in, now it is normal alert consciousness, but it's not supposed to be that way. Alpha would be the ideal state to be in terms of just energy usage at a level where you're not to one extreme or the other. Like, alpha is a pretty neutral state to be in. And it allows you to really tap into your full capability in a pretty expansive element, right? So again, after beta comes gamma. So here it says what I was saying before, 30 hertz and above. So 30 up to like 100 hertz is it's usually labeled, but of course it could go higher than that. So 30 hertz and above. Heightened perception, that's all it says, right? Because the thing is that gamma states are not only fairly rare, and only certain people who actually implement certain lifestyle qualities can attain the production of these brainwave states fairly easily, but, or I would say at all even. It's synonymous with a lot of healing abilities within the body. Like I said, with the presence of flow, these are present, which you can see. But if you knew there was a brainwave state that you could tap into at some level that would provide you like better medical or medicinal or healing like elements than you would like going to the doctor or getting medicine, or even using like any of the natural healing modalities, which I talk a lot about, like, you know, herbal teas, herbs in general, essential oils, all that stuff. Like all of that is natural stuff. But this is another level beyond that. This is like where your body is the chemistry set. It's making those on its own. Like, you don't even need anything outside to induce that, right? So essentially that's that. And maybe we'll go to the last image here. So here we go. This is the last range here, and Of course, you see here like just the kind of the same kind of stuff. But the reason why I picked this image is because the brain waves that are shown on the chart are more descriptive or accurate than the rest of the ones in the chart, just because these show that it's not always like the same rhythmic pattern, because the fact is that like it's like waves in the ocean, though the energy might flow the same way, because like the wind is like, well, for the most part it doesn't flow in the same rhythmic way, because like, you know, the wind is constantly changing directions and that wind is moving the water. But the concept that I'm trying to elaborate on here is that the waves move in all different directions, and though the overall energy might be moving in one direction, such as, you know, big waves are hitting the shoreline as you have wave run up, but essentially those waves are not in like, you know, a perfect unity or some kind of how should I say, like uniform parallel movement where everything is just perfect or equal. It's not that at all, right? It's that the waves are ultimately moving in one direction, but they're inside like that wave there's a lot of different currents pushing against each other, right? It's just that the overall energy is moving in one direction. So this is why I chose this chart, because and the interesting thing about this is that when you see delta waves, you can see that wave run up there on the chart. Same thing with a little bit of theta waves. Alpha waves is a bit different. You can see it like starting to space out a bit more, but as you get higher, that difference subsides, because not only does the wavelength become shorter as the frequency goes higher, but the difference between the troughs of the wave, or is it crests and troughs that is referred to? Anyway, the peak where the energy is spiking on the wave, they have less difference between them, or less separation or less distinction between their frequencies that are being emitted. So here on delta, you see it spikes for a moment and goes back down, right? It's almost like a kid walking up to the top of the slide at a park and then going down the slide, right? All at one time. So gamma is a lot more like, you know, a kid going back and forth on a teeter-totter or on a swing, where that energy is like more constant, right? So maybe I want to go to the park, which is why I'm making so many analogies. But yeah, so this is the basis of that. Geez, now I'm thinking of going on the swing. So, all right, that's kind of the basis of those concepts. But we'll get into next week. I'm not wrapping up yet, but I will kind of tease a bit of what we're gonna be talking about next week. We will get into stuff like the human. Oh, we could leave it up. We will get into the human like energy field, and how like the Earth really has an aura itself, and we're gonna get into human aura basically as a whole, which is, in science they call it the bioelectric field or bioelectric energy. And you know, a lot of people don't kind of make this connection, but we are basically like electric beings, right? You know, and you know, even though science tells us that, you know, we have energy that are, you know, causing us to you know, like our nerves to send signals and whatnot, we don't really make the connection to something like, you know, the Electric Man from Black Ops 2 or something like that. But you are kind of the Electric Man from Black Ops 2, which is why astral projection and out of body experiences is a thing, right? So the concept is that, and this is the concept really of the soul, that, you know, you have this energy body which leaves your body every night and comes back to it when you wake up. And obviously we've trained ourselves to be unconscious of this for the most part. And I am basically hinting at that this is something that is innate to our ability to connect with the outside world at some level, right? So everything around us you see is some form of energy, whether it's like solid like this table. I'm not going to bang the table because I was told that disrupts the mic and makes a funny sound. But what was that? I don't know. I heard something like in the background somewhere, but anyway, so that's the basis of it. We have electricity around us in the field, and the Earth has the same energy around it, which is why we have this important concept of an air medium, which actually conducts all of this energy, right, and disperses it through the field. So essentially, that's the basis of that. We're not going to get into all the science about how it deflects charged particles this week. We'll get into that stuff next week. But if the Earth has an aura around it and we can actually see it, then it's not so hard to understand why we would have an aura around us. You know, there is an aura around the Earth and we can see it. It's called the aurora borealis, right? And I think the one at the South Pole is known as the aurora australis or something like that. Don't quote me on that because like I have to double check it, but it's something like that. But basically there's northern and southern lights at both the poles, and this is how we can see the Earth's aura actually. So it's the same thing with a human being, right? And we can actually photograph now human auras. Like you put somebody in a dark room and you have a special camera and it can actually photograph the light around the human being, and it'll appear all these different colors and whatnot. So that is the human being's aura. So that's basically the gist of that concept. That's what we'll be getting into next week. So I encourage you to stay tuned for that. If you are watching this on YouTube, chances are by the time you're watching this, the episode I'm referring to is past, just because there's a lot of like episodes actually right now in the draft folder. But I don't know, maybe I'll do something interesting, like upload them all at one time or something like that. So yeah, essentially though, that's the concept of what we're going to be talking about next week. I do want to still continue to build traction on this channel. It's just like the editing process of the shorts, like I have to like pretty much I'm a like one man band, except for, you know, the boys behind the scenes, which I give credit to for making this show happen. But in terms of like editing and stuff, like, you know, I'm a one man band in terms of all that stuff, so it's very challenging for me to like, you know, upload and like make all those edits at like the same time. But I think I'm gonna start to let that go and just like upload constantly on YouTube, and like, you know, if I don't get around to making the shorts on other social media platforms, it is what it is. Because I realize I really just want you guys to have this content present, and we'll get into, you know, how well, maybe I'll just leave it at that actually. But essentially, brainwaves is what we covered today. Gamma is something I really wanted to focus on, because not only is it a brainwave state that was really paid attention to after all the other four brainwave states, but it is probably one of the most important brainwave states in the entire spectrum, just because it is aligned with that aspect of downloading a lot of information like we do when we get spiritual insight or attain states like enlightenment or whatever, right? So that is the majority of our show today. I really think that if you can implement these into your life and do things like, you know, implement your during your theta brainwaves, implement things like meditation or some like interaction with your shadow self or the subconscious mind, or do some kind of thing that's going to lead to benefit in that area,